was a violent reaction by Catholics. Shops and factories were burnt. Riots in Derry, Newry, Strabane, Armagh, as well as Belfast, went on for 4 days and left 22 dead. In the Ardoyne district of Belfast, Protestants abandoned their homes before Catholic intimidation, burning them as they left to prevent Catholics occupying them. Over 200 houses were gutted as families fled. In the wake of these events, there were 7,000 refugees. It had been the worst spate of violence since 1969. Faulkner, needing to placate unionists, had to be seen to be firm. Internment had been under consideration for some time as an alternative to a full-scale military offensive against the Provisionals. Its successful use in the late 50s convinced Faulkner that it would be effective. 1,500 people were interned. 2/3 of them had been released by the end of the year.
Going to work. What do you work?
In security terms, it was not successful. Many Republicans got wind of it and slipped away. Provisionals were able to give a press conference at a school in West Belfast 4 days after the army had swooped. Their claims that the leadership was intact were substantially true. Certainly key figures escaped arrest. Joe Cahill, leading Provisional.
Up to the present, we have lost 1 brigade officer, 1 battalion officer, and the rest are volunteers, or as they say in the British Army, privates. We've lost 2 senior officers.
Where's that, in the whole of Belfast?
In Belfast, yeah.
The army, who had opposed internment on the grounds that they were not well enough informed to pick up the right people, put a brave face on it.
Well, I don't know that I go so far as to say completely beaten, but they've taken a tremendous knock. There are still gunmen around, but they appear to be much more disorganized than they were before and don't seem to have much leadership or pattern.
Again, punitive measures against the Provisionals had resulted in massive Catholic alienation from the army and government. Stories, largely true, of physical and mental maltreatment of internees were rife in the Catholic community. Later, Britain was found guilty at the European Court of Human Rights of inhuman and degrading treatment. Catholic children stayed away from school as a huge rent and rate strike was organized in Catholic areas. Moderate Catholic politicians resorted to the traditional political protest in Ireland, rejecting the government by setting up at Dungiven an alternative assembly.
And the leader of that section of opinion, then Sir Edward Carson, said in Coleraine on the 21st of December 1912, "In the event of this proposed Parliament being thrust upon us, we solemnly and mutually pledge ourselves not to recognise its authority. I do not care twopence if it is treason or not. Today, we do not recognise the authority of the Stormont Parliament, and we do not care twopence whether it is treason or not."
Hey, boy, get back here. Come back here. Come on, back.
The Provisionals answered internment with the bomb and the gun. Up to August, only 15 members of the security forces had been killed. Within 4 months of internment, 41 had died. In the same 4 months, 66 civilians were killed and 1,078 injured. Warnings were usually given, but some bombs were ill-timed, some warnings inadequate, some bombings unclaimed. The campaign was designed to inflict maximum damage on the commercial life of the province. The need to guard the city centres stretched the security forces. It also gave the Provisionals a breathing space. One particularly devastating technique was the car bomb. A demonstration that internment had not defeated the provisionals. Media coverage of these spectacular explosions brought them wide attention.
It wasn't a bomb, but it was an ambush, because when the troops arrived, fire was opened up down the road. Man hurt there. Wait.
Over there, look, over there, over there.
Ambulance! Get the ambulance there!
There we are.
Hold on, over.
There we are.
First aid kit!
Come on. First aid kit! Okay. Down there.
And I want to tell them today that there are thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of loyalists just as good as the men of 1912 who, when the crunch comes, will show Mr. Lynch and his fellow travelers the Humes and the Currys and the Devlins, male and female. Let it not go out from this meeting that we are an irresponsible bunch of hotheads. Let it go out that we're cool, cold, determined loyalists who will never surrender and who are prepared.
On a winter Saturday, civil rights activists marched along the seashore to McGilligan Camp near Derry, where many local internees were held. They were met firstly by the police, and then by the 1st Battalion of the Parachute Regiment. John Hume led the protest.
Could you tell me on what authority that you're holding us back here from walking on
This is a prohibited area. You're not allowed in a prohibited area, and it goes 3 miles
Under
out to
what
sea.
law? Would you ask those men to stop firing rubber bullets? Women, please.
They will not. They'll stop it, provided you keep away from the wire. They don't try to enter this prohibited area.
Under what law is it prohibited, or under what authority is it prohibited? Can you tell me?
It'll be prohibited by the police and by the government.
Well, the police tell me that it's you that is in command here, not them.
I am police and military here, because this is a military area. And under the authority of the government, this has been decreed a prohibited area.
Yeah, and are you proud of the way your men have treated this crowd today?
This crowd has tried to come in a prohibited area. You, as a member of parliament, will try to stop them.
And you shot them with rubber bullets and gas. The crowd was marching over there. The leaders were going to speak to you. Before we even got there, you opened fire.
That's right.
Fire was open after they came through the wire.
No, it was not. No, it was not. Fire was open as the crowd was coming across the beach.
Hume, I'm not here to enter an argument with you.
No, I'm not here either. But I wouldn't be very proud of the conduct of your men today. They're a crowd of people, and they're totally unarmed people, as you can see for yourself.
If you lead all people away, then we'll go away too.
Yeah, but we want to march in there.
We're not allowed to march in here.
Why not? It doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to you. You can't prohibit it.
We've been prohibited by your government.
Whose government?
The government of Northern Ireland.
Not our government. And that's why you're here, because it's not our government.
February 1972. Londonderry, second city of Northern Ireland. A week after Bloody Sunday, when British soldiers had shot dead 13 Catholic men after a riot. Catholics from the Bogside area of Derry bury their dead. Nationalist Ireland felt grief mixed with rage, believing that the army was culpable. British policy in Northern Ireland had lost all credibility. Following the shootings, there was protest across the province: Fermanagh, Belfast, Armagh and Tyrone. Angry crowds in Dublin burnt down the British embassy. At Aldershot in England, the headquarters of the regiment responsible for Bloody Sunday was attacked. 7 died. The Provisional IRA announced they would avenge the deaths of Bloody Sunday. Over the next 3 months, there were 381 bombs, 56 deaths. 27 members of the security forces were killed. Republican violence escalated. Scenes like these, and the belief that the British government was soft on violence, made Protestants demand tough measures. A new loyalist organisation sprang up, Ulster Vanguard. It was backed by a Protestant paramilitary group, the Ulster Defence Association, and had considerable working-class support. It was led by William Craig.
No one seeks to subvert the Constitution of Yorkshire. No one seeks to undermine the rule of law in Sussex. But there are ruthless, wicked people who have consistently for 50 years and more sought to do those very things in Ulster.
British troops policed the streets in a polarised society. The government at Westminster considered its options. In Vanguard, it faced determined loyalism. From the Provisionals operating from within an alienated Catholic community, an effective guerrilla war. The British could no longer afford to let things drift. The Northern Ireland Prime Minister, Brian Faulkner, went to Downing Street. The British Prime Minister, Edward Heath, told him that the Northern Ireland government could no longer be responsible for law and order. This proved unacceptable to Faulkner.
I told him that it would be widely construed as an acceptance of totally baseless criticism of our stewardship, that it would be seen by the IRA and others as a first and major step on the road to a terrorist victory, and that it would leave the government of Northern Ireland bereft of any real influence and authority by removing the most fundamental power of any government.
With Faulkner's resignation, Edward Heath introduced direct rule. The Northern Ireland Parliament was suspended. Now the province would be ruled from Westminster. 50 years of unionist Protestant government was at an end. 3 days later, Protestants strike and demonstrate in Belfast. The Provisionals, it seemed to them, had bombed their parliament out of existence.
Shouldn't be allowed. Why not? Particularly the gunmen on the borders. Violence, and Heath gives in to it.
We've kept quiet, we've done what we're told, and that's what we get.
So what do you think is going to happen now?
I'll give you it in 2 words. Take a look at all these men. You'll know what the civil disobedience is.
They converged in protest on Belfast city centre. Power, transport and all major industry was closed down. 190,000 people were involved. 100,000 would march on Stormont. Here, 20,000 massed outside City Hall. Craig addressed them.
What I want to say to you all now, this new administration that is
about to be imposed upon us has got to be ignored. When the new Secretary of State comes to Ulster, we turn our backs on it. Whether it be at work or whether it be in our social lives, in every sense of the word, we'll send them to Coventry for the traitors they are.
This two-day protest was an impressive and ominous display of Protestant resolve and unity. Protestants would defend their Ulster birthright, fight the Westminster betrayal. It was one thing to give loyalty to the Crown, another to trust the politicians in London. Craig was concerned about William Whitelaw, the new Northern Ireland Secretary, with dictatorial powers in the province. He was asked at his first press conference in the old Stormont buildings whether the loyalists of Vanguard might make the province ungovernable.
I hope very much that no one in the situation that we now are faced, the decision having been taken, would seek to do that. And I do not believe that when time has been passed for maturer councils, that such a view will be taken.
The close connection between the paramilitary Ulster Defence Association and Vanguard was obvious at the recruiting centres. Tens of thousands of Protestants joined Vanguard, demanding a return to majority, that is, Protestant rule, an end to concessions to the Catholic minority, and the destruction of the IRA. Its resolve echoed 1912, when the call of no surrender marshalled Protestants against Home Rule, and the presence on the streets of the Ulster Defence Association, now numbering 50,000 men, recalled the threat of the Ulster Volunteer Force 60 years before. As they marched past the Catholic Unity Flats, they made their feelings clear. Such was the tension between the two communities that sectarian killings were now a feature of Belfast life. By the end of the year, 87 Catholics and 43 Protestants had been killed for no better reason than their religion. In the Catholic ghettos of Belfast and Derry, provisionals were policing their own areas. For nearly a year, parts of both cities were no-go areas into which neither police nor army were admitted. Provisional checkpoints were a common sight. Then in June, a truce was agreed between the British government and the provisionals. Secret talks involving Whitelaw took place in London. The talks were fruitless and the truce collapsed when fighting broke out on the Lenadoon estate in Belfast. The Northern Ireland Housing Executive had allocated houses abandoned by Protestants to Catholics. The UDA had objected, fearing Catholic encroachment into Protestant territory. When attempts had been made to move in a Catholic family, the army had intervened. The intention was to stop a confrontation between the provisionals and the UDA. Lorries loaded with Catholic furniture were pushed back by army tenders.